I'll say that the gig is in Africa. I'll say that, I know that there's a lot of reasons for people to travel overseas, and I tell people, travel overseas, build capacity and come back, because the biggest shifts happen in this continent. That's why a lot of people are, investments are looking at Africa, right? One of the biggest dynamics or geodynamics is the demography of Africa. We have a massively youthful, young population. There are so many dynamics that have not played to our good, which has created the opportunity. Africa as a continent has not invested a lot in demographic dividends. That means, investing in programs like family planning to have a productive population. And so there's a huge population. Look at Nigeria. We are already being projected by 2050 to be hitting hundreds of millions of people. We are the youngest continent. We have a lot of young people. Soon we'll be over 3 billion as a continent. And you see, people is power. Numbers means money. In the same vein, the structures in Africa or in this continent are also very weak. And that's why it's a huge market. So there's a huge market, a very young dynamic population, hungry population, having access to global tools like the internet and digital solutions that needs to be harnessed properly. So whether it's from finding payment solutions to providing services, or to even delivering goods and services, the market is just right. There's also the huge differential between those that have not, the rich, the poor, urban, rural dynamics, the infrastructure, food. Oh my God, it's endless. That is why, I would say, tell people, for those in the social services and the development sector, this is the time to make significant impact. If you think this is the time to maybe lower your expectation, no, this is the time, because this is when we now need more health solutions. People need to be alive. You need more health, you need more reproductive health solutions, because you have youthful, productive populations. You need more safe cities. You need more smart cities. You need sustainable transportation systems. You need good food and agricultural systems. You need, the needs are just endless. So this is the time. That's why Africa is the hotbed, I would say, not for charity, like people do it, because the people around the world now know that, you see, this continent is also the richest continent. So why give to people who have a lot? So the tide has changed. Governments are now very, very clear. This is a business. And also our markets are also very now stronger. Our governments are now stronger to say, well, we have the resources, we have what you are looking for. And so there's a convergence. So the game has to be different. And non-profit leaders need to begin to see this, right? And that's why in the continent as well, there's also a growth of local philanthropy. There's an obligation by a lot of companies, whether it's ESG platforms or aid or philanthropy. There's a whole lot. Mining companies are being told, you need to, you cause environmental degradation here, you need to invest here. And that's where you need a non-profit sector. That's where you need the development sector. You have food and beverages company producing for Africa. People asking questions. What are you doing? You have banks declaring billions and millions of dollars. What are you doing as corporate social responsibility? And that's the onus on development organizations in the continent, where you now begin to look at what is the domestic resource to fund your work. So there's a huge market opportunity for local organizations or indigenous organizations to access this resource. However, you see, the continent has been spoiled by foreign donors, right? Mm-hmm. So the difference is now kind of, our difference and the challenge is for local organizations to now begin to think, what are the needs of these private organizations? How do we step up? How do we improve our capacity? So there's a lot of external capacity. You don't want to talk to Shell or the oil companies, for example, whether they're indigenous companies, in a different language that they will not understand. You need to speak the language that will not. You need to get the evidence. You need to tell them about, okay, this is how your work is impacting the environment, and this is why you must invest. This is the protocols that Nigeria have signed up to. Nigeria has signed up to ending glass flaring. Nigeria has signed up to climate change protocols. You know, what are you doing around these questions, for example? These are some of the things around, you know, protocols, for example, the Abuja Declaration for Health. Government should be putting this percentage on health. What are you doing? You come here, you do this mining work. You know, how do you support the local community sustainably? How do you, you know, PIAs, all the conversations around PIAs. So this is the time for organizations in Africa, but it requires these skill sets I'm talking about: strong governance, strong finance system, accountability, use of evidence, not only highlighting the stories and talking about how bad things are. It's also to come to the table with the capacity. The recent conversation we're having, as telling one, the CEO of One Foundation was talking about that there's some of them private organizations that wanted to invest, and they couldn't find organizations locally to put the data on the table. And that's the question. So what would you as a local leader do? Would you invest in building the capacity to utilize data, analyze data, and use data to drive the solutions you create, or you just want to be emotional? Emotions will not deliver where you want to go.